Hello. Thank you so much, Judith Hurwitz, for being a part of the Chat About AI podcast. So excited to have you here with us today. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. It's great to be with you.
Judith, you're a star. I mean, you're very humble, but let's be honest, you're a thought leader around AI. You've had your own multiple of your own companies. You've written 11 books. You're currently a chief evangelist at Gemino's Software, a causal AI platform intended to help business leaders collaborate and understand the cause and effect of business problems. And that's what we want to focus on this podcast, is to hear more about how you're looking at AI, specifically how you're thinking about the business problems and how it can be helped with causal AI, the book that you've recently wrote that I thought was incredible and highly recommend to all my friends. I'm going to pass it over to you. Tell us a little bit about what you're seeing out there. How did this book come about?
Okay, thank you so much. I joined a causal AI company about 2.5 years ago. And the whole premise of causal artificial intelligence is not just to look at is there a correlation between factors, but how do you look at the cause and effect of situations that occur? Whether it's why did my marketing campaign fail, or why is my manufacturing process suddenly failing? Why do I have? How can I improve my yield in an agricultural situation? And why do I have problems? And what can I do to make things better and understand why they happen, what the cause, what the effect, and then what can I do to improve the situation? So it really gets to the heart of what businesses have been trying to do for millennia. If we think about it, understanding not just, gee, there seems to be a relationship between A and B, but what does that mean? Why is that happening? Does smoking cause lung cancer? Why do people who smoke seem to get more lung cancer? Now, we obviously know the answer to that, but if we look back into the 50s and early 60s, people didn't understand that. So cause and effect is really becoming not just something that is marginally of interest, but it's actually becoming something that businesses actually are required to do to improve their decision making and their profit margins.
100%. How do you think we've always had these problems and we've tried to fix them with technology and analysis and all kinds of things? How do you think AI makes it better or different? What is different this time than it has been in the past?
So artificial intelligence obviously is not a new concept. It's been around since the 1950s with some of the initial thinkers who believed that you could sort of create an artificial intelligence platform that would allow you to solve very complex problems using technology. And of course, it turned out to be a lot harder than everyone thought. What
Mhm.
we have today, and the most common use of AI, is through deep learning technology, and it can be very effective as long as you have a good handle on what you're trying to solve and then use this advanced technology to do that, like deep learning. The problem with that is that it can give you good answers as long as you have the right data sources that are not biased and are not flawed in some way, and that you can really understand what is actually doing. And one of the problems with some of the neural network technology is that there's so many
Yeah.
layers of technology that being able to explain why it came to the conclusions that it came to is really not possible.
Agreed.
What
And
one of
so
one
you
of the issues that companies and society in general are focused on is how do you use this powerful AI technology to help solve business problems? I mean, the perfect example is Chat GPT and generative AI, which is incredibly important and can be used actually as part of a causal AI system. But you need to be able to understand when it's getting things right and when it's getting things wrong, because it simply doesn't have enough of the right information.
That's very true. And ChatGPT is a closed model, so we actually don't know how all these variables are interacting. And from an enterprise perspective, being in industry for so long, I know that we're kind of apprehensive, right? Like if we build on top of ChatGPT or GPT-4, like what are we introducing into the ecosystem for our customers? Who is liable for that information? So how do you advocate that for your customers? I know that there's open models, there's closed models, open being like Llama, for example, there's closed ones like GPT. Is there a best practice to go one way or the other?
Yeah,
Should we
so
consider?
what we are finding, the customers we're working with,
Yeah.
they are very hesitant to use an open generative AI model. They
Oh,
want it to
interesting.
be closed. They
Okay.
want it to focus on their own internal information and not be basically a pub, look at public information. So that's very important, is to understand what problem you're solving. That's actually, coming back to why causal AI is so important, is that it's critical to begin with a hypothesis. What problem are you actually trying
Yeah.
to solve? Which is really one of the benefits that you get from a causal inference or a causal AI perspective. And that's one of the innovations that Judea Pearl, who's really the father of causal inference, brought to this field.
Hmm. So you have to define your hypothesis, right? That's the first step. And that
Yes.
once you define the hypothesis or the problem, do you want to limit the scope of that problem or do you want the hypothesis to be pretty broad and generic? Like, how do you start? Small or big?
So one of the factors, and one of the ways that at Gemino Soft we're approaching this, is don't build one massive model of the world. I've always called this, creating a big science project, which
Yeah.
which can have can be difficult to solve, and typically management will say, "Okay, you've been doing this for 5 years. Why haven't you come up with a solution?" So the idea that you take this in stages and you look at one issue at a time, you can then link those together. But being able to look at a problem, and in a narrow sense, and then link those solutions together, is a really important way to do that.
So starting small
Almost
and really
almost
defining.
like a microservices approach.
I love that. So you're defining a specific like specific problem. You want to fix this one variable, and the smaller the problem, the more likely you are to actually fix it, right? To define how to infer the
Yeah.
data that you see back.
So for example, in a manufacturing situation, I want to improve the way we, manufacture a product. So we're going to model the entire manufacturing process from beginning to end. How long is
Right.
that going to take? It'll probably take a long time. Rather, okay, we seem to have a failure at a certain stage in our manufacturing process. Is the problem that there's too much moisture? Is
Mhm.
temperature too high? Is there corrosion that's causing this problem? So you're starting off by saying, okay, we want to focus on why at a certain stage in the manufacturing process are we having this problem. So you
Mhm.
start out by, okay, what are all the variables that go into this process at this stage, and you model that. Now, what Gemino's software does is we have a low code modeling environment that allows a team to create that model, look at the end state, and look at all the variables that go into solving that problem and figuring out, okay, could it be moisture? So what one of the factors in a causal inference, causal AI, is that you can say, well, what if I reduce the temperature by 5 degrees? What would the outcome be? What if I reduce there seems to be a lot of moisture. What if I found a way to reduce moisture? So you're not just saying, okay, here's the data that I start with. Let me see what the model looks like. You're starting by inference, looking at what factors could be causing this problem. It
Mm,
also allows you to incrementally, so underneath this platform, this graphical low code environment, is a lot of mathematics underneath it that lets you
mm,
look at variables and how they are related to each other. You add the data into that, and have the mathematics do
mm,
its job, and then look at, how strong are the relationships. So, maybe it's, well, temperature, yeah, it's a factor, but it's not really that strong a factor. In
sure.
fact, it's moisture and the level of moisture that is the most important, that's the highest weight within that environment. So let's take a look at that. What if we found a way to reduce moisture, and then you have, so now that you're looking and making sure you have enough of the right data in order to solve that. So if you start with some data and you say, wow, I'm getting really strange results with this data, well, maybe I don't have
Sure.
enough data, maybe it isn't the right data. So early in the process, you get to, in your decision making process, you get
Yeah.
to understand very early on, do I have the right data? Do I have the right amount of data to help me make my decisions?
Let's talk about data because that's the foundation, right, of everything AI does. And let's be honest, we've been in the industry a long time. Data is not great, right? Like there's a lot of garbage in data. People don't maintain it well. And then they try to put into these AI models and get information, and they're getting some strange information because that data has never really been cleaned or is not appropriate. How do you work with your customers in defining what that data looks like, cleaning up the data before it's put into the causal AI
Yeah.
modeling tool?
So one of the very important aspects of causal AI, it's not just the data in isolation. You need to bring in subject matter experts. They understand, let's say, going back to our manufacturing, they understand manufacturing very well.
Hmm.
They understand processes. They understand factors like temperature and moisture and corrosion. They understand that very well. So it's the data that they understand. They know what data they have. There are people within the organization who have a really good handle on the data that's within their own environment, and what data they have and what data is missing, and what outside sources of data they may need to add. So one of the important factors is what I call creating a hybrid team. And this is and that's one of the real benefits of a causal AI approach. You don't just, I a funny story that I actually heard from a client a number of years ago when I was doing some consulting in this area. They were talking about one of their clients that was very excited about AI. They hired five data scientists, gave them their own space, spent $1 million per data
Yeah.
scientist.
Yeah.
They said, go do your work. And then 6 months later, they came back to the team and said, well, um, what have you found? How have you solved our problem? And they said, well, we've met as a team for the last 6 months, and we now have decided on what algorithms we're going to use.
Mhm.
And they didn't work with subject matter experts. They didn't work with the data analysts within the organization, or even with the management team that understand what problem they were trying to solve. They were working in isolation. So the value of a hybrid team is you bring teams together, people that work together to define what variables are important, what problems they're solving, what are the processes that go into decision making within the organization. Now, when you create a team, you don't necessarily have a team of um, 80 people for a year. You will have people that come in and out of the team. You probably will have sort of a best practices team that then would go from area to area, helping organizations create models that can help them make better business decisions.
Hmm. I love that. And I love your approach to teams, to be honest. I've led a lot of different teams, and that's what I truly loved about your book, how practical it is. Because a lot of times, to your point, data scientists are off in the corner. Nobody knows what they're really doing. And then they come out with some model, and you're like, well, what does it do? How does it work? Well, it's magic, and it doesn't really apply to the real world. And so, where it gives you results that are completely irrelevant to what you're trying to accomplish, and it almost becomes a waste of time, right? So really bringing the SMEs together is really important. And the other thing I think is just defining the scope, being smaller. Like start with a small pilot, right? Identify the specific problem, see how it works, see what data you get, and get that done really well, and then move on to the next problem. Don't just try to
Yeah.
address the world.
Definitely, and that's what we are finding with our clients. They might start with, okay, there's one specific aspect. Let's see if a causal AI approach, you using this low code development platform can help us. And
Mhm.
once they see the results, that boy, that improved decision making,
Right.
then they expand to the next problem. So it's a really good, try, and that's one thing that I've focused on in my career, advising companies and being part of teams looking at advanced technology. If you try to boil the ocean, if you
Yeah.
try to tackle too much all at once without being able to demonstrate that you're actually solving a business problem and you're getting results, you have to do that, or else management says, okay, we've given you $5 million. Why don't we have results? So being able to prove results, prove that a technology improves decision making, improves the ability for a company to service their customers in a better way, to get better results, to have better products and services, to reduce churn. If suddenly you're losing customers, why are you losing customers? Well, we never had this before. Well, maybe it's a bad marketing team. However,
Mhm.
maybe it's the fact that there is a new competitor in the market that is offering a solution similar to what you have, but at half the cost. So a
Right.
customer that may have been with you for 10 years suddenly leaves because they can get just as good a solution at half the cost.
Oh, 100%. And a lot of times we might not even know that that's the case, right? We're always looking at things we can't control within our company. Oh, the marketing team is not doing well. Well,
Right.
there's a lot of market factors and they're moving super fast, faster than we've ever seen before. And so being aware of that. So causal AI kind of brings that into perspective, right? It kind of opens up that opportunity to understand
Yeah,
that.
I really see causal AI, if you look at, the history of technology. I mean, this has always been the goal. How can we take the data, our ability to do, advanced, sophisticated computing at great speed. So you have, what you have with cloud computing, compute services, storage services. You bring that in with what we've been able to achieve with artificial intelligence, with modeling. So in a sense, I see that causal AI sort of brings together all of the work that this incredible industry has been doing for decades, and I see this as really the future of computing.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. We both kind of talked a lot about this in the past, how AI is almost becoming its own operating system, right? It's a way that everything will be processed through at some point, right, to get a result. So let's talk a little bit about the future because I think that's very relevant. How do you see this evolving? How fast is it going to evolve? In which ways? Like if you had a crystal ball.
Yeah, so I do think it's evolving quickly. Um, Again, this technology has been around for a while. This causal inference. So we've gone from this being sort of an academic pursuit,
Mhm.
and you can probably find every week 100 papers being written on this technology. You're now seeing universities across the globe offering courses in causal inference and causal AI. You're beginning to see major corporations setting up teams focused on causal artificial intelligence. So I see this as not, it's interesting in a lot of areas of emerging technology. This is a great idea. Let's have utility computing,
Mm.
which was something that people talked about in, let's say, the 1970s and 1980s. They were talking about this, and okay, how do you do this? Well, there was no infrastructure there. It was before the cloud and the internet became ubiquitous. So you had an area where it was aspirational. This is what people wanted to do, but they didn't necessarily have the tools and infrastructure to execute on that. In a
Yeah.
way, it's just the opposite with causal artificial intelligence and causal inference. There is so much technology, so much research focused on this. So now it's taking this huge body of research and computing capability and now applying it to the commercial market.
Which is super exciting. So I have to ask, besides reading the book, which I highly recommend everyone does, is there a course on causal AI like myself who might not have I haven't gone to school for quite some time. Um, is there a course I can watch online? Like how would I educate myself to get better at this?
So there are I mean, go to YouTube. There are
Okay.
hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of really good courses, or lectures on causal AI introductions. Some are very technical. Some are really great introductions.
Okay.
Every university on the planet is offering courses, so take your pick. And many of them have open source those courses, so you don't even have to pay to take those courses. I would say that there isn't sort of one course. There
Okay.
there are lots
There's
of,
many opportunities to
real,
learn.
yeah, they're really, really smart people out there. They're, one of the books that I recommend is a good starting point is Judea Pearl's The Book of Why. And
Okay.
it's sort of become a legend in the industry. It's a really good book that sort of puts it in perspective.
I'm gonna
Uh,
get that today. I'll be honest with you. I'm
okay.
excited.
Yeah,
That is really wonderful because there is so much to learn. I've recently organized a team, even in my job, to see how we can create essentially AI technologist, a person that you would ask questions of about different technologies, and they could recommend a feature or a technology based on what the company is doing. But even from that perspective, people, as we're looking at documentation for Google, for example, it constantly changes. And they're like, I just looked this up yesterday and they changed the documentation again. Or I
absolutely.
found something new that was done completely much easier than the previous way they were doing it, literally a day later. And I try to remind everyone, like, the expert in this field right now is like 1 years old. So, like, we're all learning, which I
Yes.
think makes this such an exciting time, to be honest, to
It is,
to
and I
innovate.
mean, if just take generative AI, which is absolutely exploding in some ways, it's sort of taking our eye off the ball of looking at more broadly at the important AI technologies. But even in that field, every day there's yet another competitor that says, "Oh, this is twice as good as Chat
Yeah,
GPT." Every company in the planet, whether it's Google or Amazon or Facebook or whatever they're calling themselves now,
right.
Meta,
Meta,
is
yeah,
innovating in AI technologies.
yeah, and there's definitely a race, right? Like you can feel the
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's almost it's being a techie, we saw all the drama that happened with OpenAI recently, right? With their CEO, and everyone is into it, and it almost feels like the yellow papers a little bit. Technology has never been in that space where it's so exciting, everybody's following who the CEO is and the ins and outs of it. So I think it's with this explosion, we're almost like people care about tech. They feel like they can get involved in tech. It's no longer kind of this behind the scenes, behind the doors information. It's everybody's getting into it, and I think that's the power of it, is that it's being
It's the power, and
democratized.
it's also the risk, because
Yeah,
you have to make sure that when you're looking at this technology, you're really understanding what it can do and what it can't do. Um,
sure.
uh, is it what they call hallucinating? Is it
Yeah,
who wants to impress the teacher, and the teacher asks a question, and the student, that 5-year-old student, wants to answer, and so raises their hand and gives
yeah,
an answer. Well, it's not necessarily the correct answer, but they want to
right.
show the teacher how smart they are. So sometimes you you have to be careful.
You have to know what they're saying is true or not true, right? That's where the
That's right.
SMEs really come in, and the dependence
Yeah.
on the people who understand this business area is you
Yeah.
have to know whether
And
the
and
answer is
that's
valid.
yeah, and that's why a lot of companies are looking at private generative AI models and systems in order to be able to discern what's true and what isn't, because you need to, coming back to data, you need to
Yeah.
be able to control the environment and know that the data, the information, whether structured or unstructured data, actually is accurate.
That's very true. And yeah, and the answers are not consistent, right? Depending on how the prompt is done and the interaction that happens, you could actually get a very different answer. And so you can't predict that every user will get a consistent answer that you want them to get for the question
Right,
that they're looking.
right, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Judith. This was such a pleasure, and I appreciate your time. This was a lot of fun, and I hope everyone gets your book. Causal AI is incredible. It's available on Amazon. So I'll put a link in the notes as well. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much
so
for
much,
your
Vicky.
time today.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks. Oh, okay.
I think that worked.